I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 5 English lesson on similes and metaphors. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English language arts, grade 5. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of similes and metaphors. All right, so we see that our chapter is similes and metaphors. Our subject is English language arts, grade 5. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of similes and metaphors is to determine the meanings of similes and metaphors, and to identify similes and metaphors. All right. So when it comes to similes and metaphors, right? Similes and metaphors are figures of speech that compare two things that are not alike, right? So they're not actually alike. So similes and metaphors, once again, are figures of speech that compare two things that are not actually alike. So it compares the two things, but it is not alike, right? And when it comes to similes, right, a simile, it compares two things by saying that one is like the other, right? And similes, they often use word like or as. So similes use words like or as, right? For example, remember we must have said that similes compares two things, right? By either saying one is like the other, right? But they are not actually alike. But we are just using words when it comes to similes where we use words like and we use words as, right? And that is basically to compare two things. And we said it is to compare two things that are not actually alike. And if we look at an example, right, of a simile, it says, my sister runs like a cheetah, which means that we are now comparing how fast the sister runs to a cheetah. Does she run as fast as a cheetah? No, she doesn't. But we're just putting emphasis on the fact that she runs very fast, right? So it says that the sisters running and cheetahs running are being compared using the word like, right? Because a cheetah is fast. So a cheetah is known for running very fast. So the simile means that the sister also runs very fast. But doesn't necessarily mean that the sister would outrun the cheetah. No. Would she be able to run away from the cheetah? No. Right? But it's just to show that she runs fast. So my sister runs like a cheetah. And that is why we say when it comes to similes and metaphors, right? It is just a figure of speech where we compare two things. But these two things that we are comparing, right, they are actually not alike. But we would basically, let's say, we would compare the two things and we would say that the one thing is like the other, right? And we will use words like and we'll use words as to compare the two. But it basically just to show it's like a figure of speech, right? To show like the one is almost like the other, but not, it's not literal, it's more figuratively. If you look at the next one, it says the cat's fur was as dark as the night. So the cat's fur was as dark as the night. Can we compare a cat's fur to the night? No, because it's two different things, right? But they're putting emphasis on it is dark at night, the sun has set. Basically, the only light that is being shown is basically the light of the moon, right? So basically, it is dark at night, right? So which means that the fur of the cat is also very dark, and we are comparing it to the night. It is two things that is being compared, but that is actually not alike. So which means that the fur of the cat as well as the night is being compared. And they use the word as to compare those two, which means that also the night is very dark. So the simile means that the cat's fur is also dark, right? So that is a simile. And once again, a simile compares two things by saying that the one is like the other. And similes, they often use words like or they use words as. And that is to compare two things, right? And then we have a metaphor, right? Then we have a metaphor. And a metaphor or metaphor. So metaphor or metaphor, it compares two things by saying that the one that by saying that one of them is the other. So metaphor, it compares two things by saying that the one is the other, right? So when it comes to similes, once again, right, we said similes compare two things by saying that one is like the other, right? And we use words like and we use words as. But a metaphor, right, it compares two things by saying that one of them is the other, right? One of them is the other. And unlike similes, right, metaphors don't use words like and metaphors don't use words as, right? For example, the town formed a blanket over the town. Sorry, the snow, the snow formed a blanket over the town, right? Which means that the snow and the blanket are compared without the words like or as. So once again, the snow is like a blanket and it's being compared without the word like or as. So they say the snow formed a blanket over the town. So it's by saying that one of them is the other. So when it comes to, for example, them saying that the snow formed a blanket over the town, a blanket, of course, is a large piece of cloth that completely covers a bed, right? So which means that if they're saying that the snow covers up, the snow is formed like a blanket over the town, then it means the metaphor meaning would be that the metaphor makes the reader imagine that the snow becomes a blanket covering the town completely, meaning the whole town, in the whole town, it is snowing, right? Sometimes when it snows or when it rains, right, then it will only be in certain parts of the town, right? Because I know sometimes, just to be an off topic example, like I live in one suburb, right? And most times when it rains, then it would sometimes rain in my suburb, but it won't rain in another suburb close by to me, right? Or it would rain in the next suburb, but it won't be raining by where I live. But in this case, the snow is a blanket over the town, which means that it basically is snowing everywhere in town. So the whole town is completely covered with snow. And that is where the blanket comes in. The blanket of snow covers the whole town. And when we are using similes and metaphors in our writing, this can help you to create an interesting picture for the reader. So, using similes and metaphors in our writing can help us to create an interesting picture for the reader. Because now it means that we are comparing, we are coming up with figurative expressions, right? We're coming up with figurative expressions to basically make it more interesting, right? Yes, yes. So a simile would be that my life is like a bumpy road filled with its own ups and downs. That is totally correct, right? Which means that you are going through through a lot. So you're going through a lot, right? Which means that when we talk about ups and downs, and it means that we usually have our happy moments and we also have lots of, our sad, miserable, depressive moments, right? And especially when it comes to bumpy roads, right? The figurative expression of bumpy road is there is, when you are driving a car and bumpy, when you're in a car and there's like a bumpy road, it is very uncomfortable, right? You're constantly hopping and you just want to get out of that until you get to a smooth tar road or something. So when life is like a bumpy road, it means that it's not a nice place to be in, right? It's almost like it's constant trouble, or you are going through the most, in the sense of it is just not a nice feeling to be there. And then a metaphor is, it says, and a metaphor would be that my life is a bumpy road. Yes, so now you are directly comparing your life to a bumpy road. Because in this, with a simile, it's like you're comparing your life like a bumpy road, right? It's not necessarily saying that it is a bumpy road. It's like a bumpy road. So which means that a bumpy road, like the example that I just made, right? It is uncomfortable. It's basically, it's constant, you know, it's like it's just a terrible road to be on. So that is how you're comparing your life to. But when it comes to a metaphor, right, it's also you comparing to things, but you are saying that your life is like that. You're not comparing it to that, you're saying your life is like that. It's like always full of nonsense, right? There's constant bad feelings about it. You are constantly unhappy. You are constantly miserable, right? That is what you are saying. My life is a bumpy road, and that is correct. Yeah, I agree. Everybody's life is a bumpy road, but as long as we we constantly smile and we don't show that our bumpy road, we don't show our bumpy road on our face, because once you start showing your bumpy road on your face, you show how your life is filled with ups and downs, then people are going to they're going to attack you at your lowest. They're going to attack you at your where your weaknesses are. So just constantly smile and never show people that your life is a bumpy road or your life is like a bumpy road, right? But that is so true. So yes, it is how you react to the moment, and that is all that matters. But well done. So thank you for that. I think we all needed to hear that. All right. So once again, we have similes and metaphors, and we said a simile and similes and metaphors, they are figures of speech, right? And remember, when it comes to figures of speech, like figurative speech is figurative meaning. We're not saying it is something directly like that, right? It is not something directly like that, but it is a figurative expression, right? And if the figure of speech, right, it compares to things that are not actually alike. So I'm comparing myself to that, but it's actually not alike. I'm saying that I am like that, but I'm actually not, it's not actually alike. So we say the simile compares to things by saying that one is like the other, and similes use words like and they use words as, right? And that is to compare two things. It's like comparing my life to a storm or tsunami, for example, or comparing my life to a beautiful bunch of colorful roses, right? So you can compare your life to anything. You can compare something to anything. You can compare someone also to something, right? And then we see it with a metaphor, it compares to things by saying that one of them is like the other, is the other, sorry. So metaphor it compares to things by saying that the one is the other, right? And metaphors don't use words like or as, they just say it is the other, right? All right, so now let's go to aplusstudents.ca, where we are going to be doing our tutorial lesson as well as our password. Sorry, our tutorial lesson as well as our test. So we're going to the first one, which is to determine the meaning of similes and metaphors. All right, so once again, we said similes and metaphors are figures of speech, and they compare two things that are not actually alike. And we said similes, it compares two things by saying that the one is like the other, and they use words like, and they use words as, right? And we said a metaphor compares two things by saying that the one is the other, right? Metaphors don't use words like or as. And when it comes to similes and metaphors, right? Similes and metaphors, we use similes and metaphors in our writing to help us create an interesting picture for the reader. All right. Now, if we are going to look at an activity, right? It says, what is the meaning of the simile? We now need to say what the meaning is of the simile. Remember, similes are just it's just figurative expressions, right? It is just words that is being compared. It's like one thing that is being compared to the other, right? It's like we are comparing two things, but then just saying that the one is like the other. That is a simile. So, what is the meaning of the simile? It says, the little boy's shout was like a lion's roar. It says the little boy's shout was like the lion's roar. So, what does that mean? Does it mean that the little boy's shout was loud? Or do you want to say that the little boy's shout was dangerous? If we say that the little boy's shout was like a lion, we're comparing it to a lion's roar. Are we saying that the little boy's shout was loud? Or do we say that the little boy's shout was dangerous? All right, so if we were to, it says, the little boy's shout was like a lion's roar. So we need to say what the meaning of that simile is, right? And we can then say that the little boy's shout was loud. So we will say the little boy's shout was loud, right? Because a lion's roar is quite loud. So that is how we compare the little boy's shout like a lion. The roar of a lion, because the roar of a lion is quite loud, right? Remember, a lion's roar is only dangerous if you provoke it. All right. Now let's look at the next one. We need to say what the meaning of the metaphor is. What is the meaning of the metaphor? It says the ocean at night was a large pool of ink. So the ocean at night was a large pool of ink. Does it mean that the ocean was made out of ink? Or does it just mean that the ocean was dark? So the ocean was made out of ink or the ocean was very dark? What is the correct meaning to that metaphor? No, you're not insane. Everybody panics before they get the reports because you don't want to disappoint your parents. You don't want to disappoint yourself. So, what is the meaning of the metaphor? The metaphor is the ocean at night was a large pool of ink. And if we were to choose the correct meaning to that metaphor, and then we can say that the ocean was very dark, right? Because no, the ocean is not made out of ink, but the ocean is very dark. So, well done. All right, we need to say what the meaning of the simile is, right? It says, like a tree with deep roots, the Howell family had made their home in Hillsborough. So, like a tree with deep roots, the Howell family had made their home in Hillsborough. We need to say what the meaning of that simile is. Does it mean that the Howell family had made a home in a large tree? Do they live in in a large tree? Or can we say that the Howell family had made a home to stay in for a very long time? And usually when we hear the word rooted, and then it means that we're here to stay because roots are it comes from the ground up. All right. So do we say that the Howell family had made a home in a large tree? Or do we say that the Howell family had made a home to stay in for a long time? Yes, and if we were to choose the correct one, then yes, we will say that the Howell family had made a home for them to stay in for a long time. It is deeply rooted. They are there to stay, right? They are there to grow their family, starting from the bottom up. So well done. That is correct. All right, so now let's go to our test, right? Where we are going to determine the meaning of similes and metaphors. Yes, well done, guys. Well done, everybody. All right, so now what is the meaning of, we're going to the test, right? What is the meaning of the simile? My mother's hands are like silk. My mother's hands are like silk. Does it mean that your mother's hands are soft or your mother's hands are small? Which one is correct? My mother's hands are soft or my mother's hands are small. All right, so do we say my mother's hands are soft or my mother's hands are small? The meaning of this, the meaning, what is the meaning of the simile? My mother's hands are like silk. All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, then yes, we would say my mother's hands are soft. It's like soft, silky, right? And soft is correct. Silk, proper silk, or even softer. We need to say what the meaning of the metaphor is. It says the moon was a silver dollar in the sky. So the moon was a silver dollar in the sky. Does it mean the moon was round and bright? Or do we say the moon was visited by astronauts? The moon was a silver dollar in the sky. Do we say that the moon was round and bright, or do we say that the moon was visited by astronauts? All right, and if we were to say the moon was a silver dollar in the sky, and we give the meaning of that metaphor, and then we can say it is the moon that was round and bright. So well done. The moon was round and bright is correct, right? So well done, guys. Whenever I'm having a hard time, so whenever I'm having a hard time, Mrs. McKinney is my rock. We need to give the meaning of the metaphor. It says, whenever I'm having a hard time, Mrs. McKinney is my rock. We need to say what our metaphor is. Is it Miss Kinney is dependable, or Miss Kinney is a stone statue? Miss Kinney is dependable, someone that he can depend on, or Miss Kinney is actually just a statue made of stone. All right, so if I'm having a hard time, Mrs. McKinney is my rock, which means that Mrs. Kinney is dependable. It is nothing to do with an actual rock. Mrs. Kinney is dependable. You can always count on Miss McKinney to be there and basically have an open door policy to always have a good chat, right? So option one is correct. So well done. All right, the next one says, what is the meaning of the simile? And the simile is, the little boy's shout was like a lion's roar. Does it mean that the little boy's shout was loud? Option one. Or option two, the little boy's shout was dangerous. All right, so we can then say the simile, the meaning of the simile, right, is that the boy's shout was very loud. So well done. Option one is correct. Okay, we need to say what is the meaning of the metaphor, right? It says, your new house is a castle. So your new house is a castle. We need to say what the meaning is. Is it the house made of bricks, or the house is really big? All right. So if we were to say your house is a castle, right? This is a metaphor. Then we can say that your house is really big. And yes, that is correct. So well done. It is ginormous. It is extremely big. It is huge, right? That is words that we can use. The playground is always a zoo at lunchtime. So the playground is always a zoo at lunchtime. All right, so we can say that the playground is always a zoo at lunchtime. And this is, we need to give the meanings of this metaphor. Does it mean the playground is near the middle of the zoo, or the playground is a place with lots of action? And if we were to find the meaning of the metaphor, does it mean that the playground is near the middle of the zoo, or the playground is a place with lots of action? All right, so we can say that the playground is always a zoo at lunchtime, and that basically means that it is. Do we say that the playground is near the middle of the zoo, or the playground is a place with lots of action? So with lots of action is correct. The girl climbs a monkey. The girl climbs like a monkey. The girl climbs like a monkey. Does it mean that the girl is climbing with her monkey? Or does it mean that the girl is good at climbing? Because we are now comparing her to a monkey and how a monkey climbs a tree. So since the girl climbs like a monkey, do we say the girl climbs her monkey, or climbs with her monkey, or the girl is good at climbing? What is the correct simile? All right, and if we were to compare this girl, and then we will compare her to being a good climber, meaning that she's good at climbing. Like monkeys. Monkeys are quite fast when they are climbing the trees. Yes, well done, guys. Now we're going to the second one where we say that identify the similes and metaphors, right? And we already said that similes and metaphors are figures of speech that compares two things that are not alike. Similes use words like and they use words as to compare two things, right? By saying the one is like the other. Whereas metaphors, they compare two things by saying that one of them is the other, and they don't use words like and they don't use words as. All right, so now let's go to our test where we are going to identify similes and metaphors. It says, which sentence use a metaphor? It says, the cat's silver eyes were two shiny coins. Or do we say the cat's eyes were like two shiny coins? What is the correct use of metaphor? Keeping in mind that we see the metaphor does not have as and does not have a like. So, which sentence uses a metaphor? All right, so we can say which sentences use a metaphor. Then we can say the first option where we say the cat's silver eyes were shiny coins. Yes, so the first sentence uses a metaphor stating that the cat's silver eyes were two shiny coins, and that is correct because it does not use like nor as. Well done. Well done. And that is correct. Which sentence uses simile? Does it say option one, where we say the running children are a stampede of horses? Or do we say option two, the running children ran by like a stampede of horses? So the running children are a stampede of horses, or do we say the children ran by like a stampede of horses? And if we were to choose the correct or use the correct simile, then we can say the simile is the children ran by like a stampede of horses. Because remember, with similes, we use the word like and we use the word as. So well done. The second one is correct. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on similes and metaphors. We say that similes and metaphors, they compare to things that seems like it's alike, but it's not. All right. We with similes we use words like or as to compare to things, whereas with metaphors we say that something is the other. Right. All right. So this is the end of our lesson, grade fives. Thank you very much for joining the class, and you must have a good and safe weekend further. How long is your holiday going to be, your vacation? How long are you gonna be on vacation? Bye everybody. Guys, how long are you gonna be on vacation? 3 months vacation. Wow. Enjoy guys.